Welcome to the next topic on process control, analysis, design and assessment. This is Parameshwaran. I am a doctoral research scholar working with Professor Raghunathan at IIT Madras. So, today what we are going to see is like frequency response analysis. So, this is the overview of the presentation that we are going to have today. First thing is like we are going to see the motivation for the frequency response analysis from a kind of application point of view, and then we will derive the we will derive a formula for the frequency response magnitude and phase thing for like first order system, and then we will verify whatever we have derived using MATLAB, and then we will proceed to make a general formula for the frequency response, and then we will also continue with plotting the magnitude and phase with respect to the frequency in the subsequent lecture. So, we will start with the question. Let us take a case of thermometer which is used to measure the body temperature. So, as usual practice, we are always said to keep the thermometer inside the body for a minute or so. Do you know why they are asking to like keep the thermometer inside for certain minimum time? So, we will try to understand it mathematically, and then we will try to relate why, like what connection it has with to the frequency response. So, writing the energy balance equation for thermometer, we can write this particular equation wherein this is the energy accumulation and this is the heat flow into the thermometer. T is the temperature thermometer and Tm is the temperature of the measured entity like the body. So, basically by actually going through the some algebraic steps, and we finally arrive at this particular equation, and taking this particular term entity which is having units in terms of seconds as tau, we call tau as time constant. Using deviation variables forms and taking tau as this particular entity, we get this particular equation. Taking the Laplace transform of this equation, we get tau s plus 1 Ts equal to Tms, and this is what we get the final equation. Now we give a step input to the system, which is typically what happens when the thermometer is placed inside the body. Like the temperature of thermometer was initially at the same temperature of as the room as the environment, and then you keep it inside the body is going to be at a different temperature. So, basically it is a step change, and if you can see that the thermometer behaves in this particular fashion wherein the thermometer is following this particular line, but the input is this particular line. So, basically we can see that the thermometer takes certain time to follow the input. So, this we call as a lag, or lag is in sense like it lags in time, basically that is what the concept of lag is. So, now we ask another question like, okay, for step input, this is the that was the response of first order system. What will happen when we excite the system with a sinusoidal input, and we take a sinusoidal input of angular frequency 0.01, and then we see this as a response. So, if you could see this response, we can understand that the red line is the thermometer's temperature, whatever temperature is indicated by the mercury of the thermometer or the mercury's temperature, and the black line is the temperature of the input. So, the input is actually like fluctuating. So, basically we can see that the output is following the input, but it is following after certain time. So, this particular temperature is reached by the actual entity in certain time, and the thermometer takes certain time to show the same temperature. So, this is again like an indicative of lag. It shows the temperature, it records the temperature, but it does it with a lag after certain time. Now we again ask the question like, what if we change the frequency, can we see anything interesting? So, we increase the frequency to 0.85 from 0.085 to from 0.01, and then we see that now the lagging is the temperature shown by the thermometer is not only lagging, but also that it is not reaching the full amplitude of the input signal. So, basically amplitude is of the input signal is this much, and but the output whatever is the thermometer is recording is only till this much. So, thermometer never measures this particular total temperature change. So, these are the two basic things we observe. One is that when the frequency changes, two things one is that it lags, it can lag. The second thing is that the amplitude also is limited after certain frequency, like it does not show the full amplitude after certain frequency. So, now coming to understanding what is a lag angle, like we keep talking about lag, etc. Right? So, let us spend some time on understanding what is lag basically and what is the and how it is measured, etc. So lag is usually measured in terms of angle, so we call it as a phase angle or something. So basically you take a sine wave and let us say this is the time period of a sine wave. So this is the t, total t time period of a sine wave, and then let us take the blue line as the standard thing. So we will compare everything with respect to the blue line. If you see the next line, the second sinusoidal wave, it is actually following the blue line. We can assume it as a start following the blue line, but it is starting when the blue line was at 0 at time 0. It was this came to 0 after this particular time, and so this is nothing but, if you see what is the value of this, this is nothing but like 1/8 of the time period of the 1/8 of the time period of the total blue waveform. So this is nothing but 1/8 t. And one more thing to notice, like all these sinusoidal waves are of same frequency, and hence we are able to compare all this. So we may not be able to compare like sine waves of like different frequencies. So when we say phase difference, we normally it's general thing, like we assume that they are of the same frequency. And then if you see the like yellow line, it's also lagging behind the blue line, but now by a time period of like 1/4 t. So one way to measure this is like in terms of angle. So if we say the total time period t is corresponding to like 360 degrees, which is normally that we take for sine wave, and or like in terms of radians 2 pi, total time period is corresponding to 360 degree or 2 pi, then 1/8 of t will correspond to like 45 degrees, or it will be corresponding to 5 pi by 4, and 1/4 of time period we will say like 90 degrees or like 5 by 2. So this is the way we tell. For when we say like a wave is lagging behind another wave by pi by 2, that is 90 degree, then what we mean is like basically it's it is reaching the same value as the initial wave, but after a time period of 1/4 t. And this is okay to compare because the time period of both the waves are same, because the frequency of both these things are the same. So we have some exercises for you which you can let's simulate and see. You can use the code that was given in the previous slide to simulate the same thing and see. So instead of giving a sine input, give a ramp input. Ramp input is nothing but some slope into time, right? So when time is increasing, basically the signal also will get increasing with respect to the particular slope value. So you change the slope value, say you have 1 k here and another k here, change the slope value, substitute values for k like 10, 100 or 1000, and then see like how the output is varying, and then see whether when the output is following the input, first see if the output is following the input, and if it follows the input, see after what time it follows the input, and whether this k has some dependent it has some effect on the time lag between these two signals. And also mathematically derive a ramp response for the first order system, and then check that whatever you observed is correct based on based on the maths that you have derived. So coming to like mathematically putting everything and like seeing like why exactly what is this phase lag and how can we mathematically represent it, etc. That's what we are going to see now in a more mathematical thing. So this is the system, this first order system. So we say k generally we say first order system is k by tau s plus 1, and y of s equal to so we are giving the input as ut equal to sin omega t. And in Laplace domain, the output is y of s is nothing but the product of transfer function into the input in the Laplace domain. So y g of s into u of s. So g of s nothing but we substitute this into here, and then we say input sin omega t when it converts, when we take the Laplace transform of it, it's nothing but omega by s square plus omega square. So this is what we get, and then we actually resolve it into partial fractions. So we take, so one thing to notice here, like we are taken poles like tau s plus 1 is taken as tau into s plus 1 by tau, and s square plus omega square is taken as s plus j omega into s minus j omega. Okay, so there are actually 3 poles, s equal to minus 1 by tau, and s equal to minus j omega, and s equal to plus j omega, the 3 poles that we have. And then by to find the constant C1, C2, C3, we just substitute the values of s equal to minus 1 by tau, s equal to minus j omega, and s equal to plus j omega. And on substituting, we find the constant value C1 equal to k. We substitute in this particular equation. So we say k c when we substitute s equal to minus 1 by tau and cancel out this particular pole because we are substituting for that pole, we get k omega, and s is 1 by minus 1 by tau, so 1 by tau square plus omega square. This is what we get as C1. And for C2 we substitute s equal to plus j omega, and the poles that are still present are s plus tau, s plus 1 by tau, and s plus j omega. So you can do it for yourself, and it's straightforward, and then it comes to be like k omega by tau of j omega plus 1 and 2j omega. 2j omega, because like this s again becomes j omega, so in this, like this is written as s minus j omega and s plus j omega. So this pole will get cancelled when we do the partial fraction thing, and then whatever remains will be like tau into 1 plus s by tau, and this would have got cancelled when we put s minus s equal to j omega. So we get 2 j omega here, and tau into 1 plus j omega by tau. So that's what we get here. And similarly C2 also we can substitute s equal to minus j omega, and then we get the value of C2. So y of s, if we do the algebraic manipulation, basically we will end up with this particular equation, substituting values of C1, C2 and C3. So now we take y of t. Y of t we take as the inverse Laplace transform of y of s. So the one thing we can observe here is like this particular term, which is actually e power minus t by tau, will go to 0 when time tends to infinity. So because like e power minus infinity becomes 0, this particular term will vanish when time tends to infinity. So what we can understand here is like we are actually looking at the steady state frequency response of the system. So steady state means when time tends to infinity. So this term will not go to 0 when time tends to infinity, because this is actually will become like a sine wave, and but this term is actually e power minus t, so this becomes 0. And if you can see here, like this particular term is what that remains when time tends to infinity, and then we can actually rewrite this particular term here, and then on simplification this becomes of this particular form, and we know that 1 by 2 j e power j omega t minus e power minus j omega t is nothing but sin omega t, and then 1 by 2 e power j omega t plus e power minus j omega t becomes cos omega t. So this is what we get as the final form, and then we can further simplify this particular equation into this form by taking by equating this to say a cos alpha sin omega t and plus b sin alpha cos omega t. So now if we can equate these two equations and find values of a and alpha such that this particular equation is the same, then we can actually simplify this as this is a. So we can simplify this as a into sine of omega t plus alpha. So that's what we are trying to do here. So basically if you can see a cos alpha is nothing but a cos alpha is nothing but k by 1 plus omega square tau square, and a sin alpha, by equating the coefficients we get minus omega t by 1 plus omega square tau square. If we can square these two particular terms, and if we can add, we get a square of cos square alpha plus sin square alpha, which is nothing but cos square alpha plus sin square alpha is 1. So a square equal to k square plus omega square tau square, and the denominator is the same, so it's get added up, omega square tau square the whole square, because we have squared these two terms and added. So now we can see like this again, this also has a k term here, so k square, so we can take k square outside and 1 plus omega square tau square by 1 plus omega square tau square the whole square. So this gets cancelled, so a square is this particular term, and then we get a equal to, if we take the square root we get if we take the square root we basically get a equal to k by root of 1 plus omega square tau square, and if we can divide equation 2 by 1, then we get a tan alpha equal to we get a by a cancelled, so tan alpha equal to minus omega t. So alpha becomes tan inverse minus omega t, tan inverse minus omega t becomes minus tan inverse omega t. So this alpha term, alpha is what is represented by phi here. So basically we can write this k by a into, we got that a into sine of alpha plus omega t, right. So this is what, instead of alpha we are using the term phi here. So a is nothing but k by root of 1 plus omega square tau square, and alpha or the phi is nothing but minus tan inverse omega t. So that's the equation that we are going for first order system, sinusoidal response of first order system. So we have written some mathematical formula for the amplitude and the phase, but we can actually verify it using MATLAB simulation. So that's what we are trying to do here. So we take some arbitrary values for k, tau and omega, and then we simulate it in MATLAB, and also we actually find the values of a and phi, and then we see whether we can actually see from the graph whether it is approximately true or not. So a becomes, if you substitute all these values into this particular equation, this becomes 0.99, and this red line is actually reaching about 0.99, which we cannot see actually from the graph, but yeah, we can see it's near close to 1, the maximum amplitude of the sine wave represented by red line, and phi is minus 5 degrees, and we can actually try to measure the time period, and then we can confirm that this is also minus 5 degrees. So we will see a more better example where we can actually see these values getting affected, like so here we increase the frequency to 0.1, the same k and tau values, but now we get a as something like 0.7, and then we can also see from the graph like it is approximately like it is approximately 0.7 here, this is 0.7 here, and so here you can easily see that the initial response is not something that we actually can capture. See, this response and this response is the same, but this is not the same. So this is the term that we actually skipped by ignoring minus t by tau. So by initially this had an effect, and that is what was contributing to this particular initial change, but after a while, after some time, this becomes like like very small, so that we can neglect it, so that this becomes like a constant thing. So when we say frequency response, we are not concerned about the initial response, how it changes initially, but what we are concerned is about the final steady state response to the particular frequency. So now we have done it for a first order system. So now we are trying to generalize it in a more like for any transfer function. So again, input is u of t equal to sin omega t, which has a Laplace transform of omega by s square plus omega square, and g of s is nothing but again y of s is nothing but g of s into omega by s square plus omega square, which is nothing but if we solve it into partial fractions, we get some terms for each pole of g of s, we will get some constant by that pole. So that is what this particular term represents, and then this particular term becomes k1 by s minus g omega and k2 plus k2 by s minus g omega. So this term is actually like the steady state, like at the steady state we can ignore this term, because like for all if we can assume that the g of s is having poles only on the left hand side of the s plane, then this has all the terms of the form like e power minus t something in by something into something. So as time tends to infinity at steady state, what happens, this all terms vanish. So provided that g of s has all the poles on the left hand side of the s plane, we can actually ignore this particular term. So we have to be very careful about this particular statement, it is on the left hand side of the s plane, because not even the imaginary axis is permitted for now, because like even on the imaginary axis what you get basically is e power 0 into some term, so that you cannot eliminate when you do the steady state response. So basically only this derivation is valid only when you take all the poles to be of g of s on the right hand side, on the left hand side of the s plane. So now again by the usual procedure, putting s equal to j omega we get the k1 value, and putting s equal to minus j omega we get the k2 value, and then we substitute those two particular terms in y of s, and then we take the inverse Laplace transform. So now again note that g of j omega now is a complex number, because we have substituted s equal to j omega, it is no longer a transfer function, it is a complex number. So while taking the inverse Laplace transform, we need not bother about what happens to the g of j omega, because it is just a number, it is not related to the Laplace thing. So so basically s minus j omega becomes e power j omega t, and s plus j omega becomes e power minus j omega t. And now g of j omega is a complex number, so it can be represented in polar form, which is like magnitude of the complex number into the angle of the e power angle of the complex number. So basically we get magnitude of g of j omega into j into angle of g of j omega, and then magnitude of e of minus j omega, again the magnitude becomes the same, but the angle becomes with a minus, so j into minus angle of g of j omega. So again substituting all these things in the equation, we get y of t equal to e power j angle g of j omega into e power minus j omega t, and e power minus j into j of j omega into e power minus j omega t. So basically again we use the formula of sin theta is nothing but 1 by 2 j e power j theta minus e power minus j theta, and then we take this angle g of j omega as phi. We get this particular equation. So now we can see that for any system, if we excite the system with sinusoidal input, then we get the response of the form y of t equal to magnitude of g of j omega and the phase lag is nothing given by the phase of the g of j omega. It is the angle of g of j omega, that is what the phase given. But when I say any system, it's again like it's nothing but a linear time invariant system. So we are not talking about nonlinear systems here. So for any linear time invariant systems, which is LTI systems, this particular equation is valid. So a summary of what we have to remember, basically like if we have a function like g of s is equal to some product of the zeros and some product of the poles, and g of j omega is again k equal to, we substitute wherever s is there is j omega, and then we take the magnitude of it. So this is nothing but the product of root of 1 plus omega square tau square for all the zeros, and this is nothing but divided by the product of root of 1 plus omega square into tau square for all the poles. So again the angle contributed by g of j omega, that is the phase, is nothing but the angle of k. So angle of k has to be considered, because this could also, though it is a constant, it could also have a minus sign, which is actually a minus is nothing but a minus 180 minus is nothing but a 180 degree phase shift. So we have to also consider the angle of k, and also like tan inverse omega tau xi. For all the zeros we have the addition term, and for all the poles we have the subtraction term. So now let us take a general like g of s, some random g of s, and then verify whether whatever we have observed is correct. So whatever we derived is correct basically, and then we are taking g of s is equal to this, and then output amplitude equal to a into output amplitude we get a equal to 0.3 here, and phase we get minus 111 degrees. So we can basically see here it's very evident. See the input in the initial portion, the transient is actually showing a very big difference from the other things. So these are all the same, this one is different. So this is because of the terms we have neglected as e power minus t into something in the previous derivation, wherein these are all caused by the left hand side of poles of the g of s. So this is what we ignore, and then this is what we are interested. So what this a will predict is the value of this thing, and this is, we can see this is actually 3.3158, and if you see the phase lag, we can also see that like this is the input form and this is the output of the system. So the difference between these two, the time period between these two, will contribute to the phase lag of minus 111 degrees. So now something interesting we will look into it. So let us say like we have a transfer function 0.1 s plus 1 by s square plus 0.01, and we excite it with the frequency of omega equal to 0.1. So remember omega, when we say omega is nothing but the angular frequency, which is nothing but the 2 pi f, which is this frequency is the actual frequency that we measured in hertz. if you see the response here, basically we can see that the output is actually like increasing, or we can say that it is kind of like increasing in amplitude. And if we can zoom out the image and see, like it is increasing in amplitude as a straight line. So from Laplace derivation we can actually find that now the input to this is like sin omega 0.1 t, which is nothing but 0.1 by s square plus 0.1 square, which again becomes like 0.01. So s square plus 0.01. So this is what we have, two poles. Now at s equal to minus 0.01 j and s equal to plus 0.01 j, we have two poles, one pole due to the transfer function and the other pole is due to the input at the same frequency. So when we already have a pole on the imaginary axis at a particular frequency and we give the same frequency sine wave as the input, then basically when we take the inverse Laplace transform, what we get basically is like t into e power we get the t term extra. So we get basically t into e power j omega t and e power t into e power minus j omega t, which actually can be simplified into some t into sine something. So basically the sine is still there, the sine wave is still there, but only that the amplitude of this is increasing with respect to time. So when time tends to infinity, this also tends to infinity, and you can see that this is actually proportional to the time. So it is a straight line. So you can see it's a linear thing. So this is called resonance. This concept itself is called a resonance thing. So now to make you yourself like try certain things and then like think about it. So these are all not like very straightforward things, so it will be like interesting to try, and you will also like, it's not very tough also to figure it out why it behaves this way. So take the input waveform as u of t equal to sin 0.2 t and take these 4 different transfer functions and simulate and see, and also like take the inverse Laplace transform and see like if you can find out the equation and compare it with your simulation and then see whether it is matching, both things are matching, etc. So it will be, we can discuss about this in the next lecture, especially about this particular transfer function, and these functions are pretty much the same, pretty much simple. So we will mostly focus on understanding what it is this. So in the next lecture we will introduce on like graphical representation of amplitude and phase with respect to the frequency, and then we will talk about something called Bode plot, which is actually the graphical representation, and then we will also try to analyze Bode plot, and then some tricks that we can use to draw the Bode plot without even computing lot of values. So that is what we will try to do. So till then, bye.